So big up to at Soul Brother 215. You know who you are. Soul Brother 215. You know who you are. Soul Brother 215 tagged me on a story, and it was a story I had not heard about. Okay. So the news, I guess maybe less than a week ago, was that 11 East Cleveland police officers were indicted for conduct. Okay. And apparently, this has been a systemic, shocker, ongoing, shocker, issue that has plagued this tiny police department. So much so that I believe that there were either 24 or 26 total East Cleveland police officers. 16 of them total have been indicted. This latest round of indictments comes, I guess, after the first round of indictments, when the is it Cuyahoga? We got any Ohioans in here? I was watching the press conference and I heard it pronounced a couple of different ways, but the Cuyahoga County, which is, the Cleveland area and the suburbs, the prosecutors there have been actually making some intentional strides to clean up the East Cleveland Police Department, which has an abominable reputation in the neighborhood. And as I was watching the press conference, I'm so sorry. I feel like my grandmother. Am I turning into my grandmother? My nose keeps running. I thought I put some tissues in here. I did, but there's also other shit in here. So unfortunately, the tissues. Whatever. Okay, well, not tissue, but it's something. So let's call it a handkerchief. Let's call it that. So anyway, I meant to pull that clip too. I can't believe that I did. So I did not. So actually, let the package brief us briefly. Let me let the package brief us briefly on what the totality of this latest round of indictments are, and then I'm gonna come back and give y'all some more information. So let's check out that package from News 5 in Cleveland. Check it out.
It started with the police chief, then the indictments just kept on coming, and now 16 current and former East Cleveland police officers are facing criminal charges for things they did on the job. And with a dwindling police department, city leaders are now pleading for help to keep their streets safe. News 5 investigator Scott Knoll has been covering the issues in East Cleveland for months now and has our follow-up tonight.
Cuyahoga County's prosecutor acknowledged here today these indictments will likely strain East Cleveland's police department. In all, investigators say it's only about 26 officers. But the prosecutor says based on what he's seen, something had to be done. In video after video, investigators say it's the men behind the badges committing the crimes against the very community they swore to serve and protect.
The sad reality is they needed protection from people driving around in East Cleveland Police Department cars.
Newly indicted today, former East Cleveland police officers Nicholas Fody and Larice Manns, current East Cleveland detective Ian McInnes, Sergeant John Hartman, current officers Trey DeHart Robinson, Brian Parks, and former East Cleveland, now Elyria police officer Tristan Homan. Late today, Elyria police announcing they fired Homan, while 4 other current East Cleveland police officers already under indictment had additional charges added. Prosecutors say today's indictments cover incidents between February 2020 and July 2022. 11 different officers, 11 different victims, 11 different incidents, many caught on camera. Crimes investigators say that range from felonious assault to interfering with civil rights to tampering and theft in office, among others. Prosecutor Michael O'Malley not mincing words about what he watched on the recordings.
I was appalled that we could be witnessing a guy handcuffed and his head stomped, or witnessing a guy handcuffed and being tased while handcuffed repeatedly, which to me is a form of torture.
Today's charges are in addition to a series of indictments against more current and former officers late last year. All of it taking a bite out of the city's police force.
We need it in East Cleveland. We need the sheriff department to come in because it's terrible.
Yet East Cleveland City Council President Juanita Gowdy called today's indictments a miracle, hoping it's a major step towards stopping corruption inside the ranks.
This is a day of hope. It took down a lot of people, but the people know what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to uphold the law, not break the law.
Prosecutors here stress this is still an ongoing investigation. As for the 11 men indicted, prosecutors say they'll all be given the opportunity to surrender. Reporting downtown, I'm News 5 investigator Scott Knoll.
Yes, thank you all so much. Big thumbs up and big fire emoji energy for that. 16 East Cleveland police officers criminally indicted. And when prosecutor, what's his name? O'Malley, Mr. Miller. I don't remember his name. But anyway, I watched that whole press conference today. At least it was about 45 minutes long, and I think I watched maybe about a half hour of it. And I watched some of those video clips that the prosecutors are using as evidence to indict these officers with, again, felonious assault. They're accused of thieving, stealing from citizens, excessive force, conduct unbecoming, dereliction of duty, like a number of charges that seemed, reasonable and valid or whatever. So I watched some of the videos that they showed at the press conference. Let me say this also real quick. It was a very ableist press conference. There was no uh, American Sign Language interpreter, and for a lot of the videos, they could have easily been better captioned and they could have used some descriptions for the visually impaired, and they could have been captioned for the deaf and the hard of hearing in Cleveland because we know that police officers are more likely to kill disabled people, mentally and physically disabled people. So, kind of shame on the Cuyahoga County prosecutors there for not making their press conference about this public safety danger that is the East Cleveland Police Department, for not making that press conference accessible to all. A special fuck you to them. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out. So anyway, I was watching the press conference, and the prosecutor that we just saw there in that clip said something that I thought was interesting. And this was in response to his very, very first question. And I meant to pull the clip, but I didn't pull the fucking clip. So you guys are just going to have to rely on my description, but it's going to be a great description. So anyway, the prosecutor was asked, the first question was, I can't remember the first question. No, he was asked something along the lines of, is this overwhelming for the amount of officers that have been indicted in one shot here with 11? And the prosecutor responded, yes, it was overwhelming. Yes, it was a very large number. And then he goes on to talk about, number one, how there's only 4 remaining East Cleveland police officers in the entire department. Everybody else is under indictment, or they've been fired, or they are in trouble, right? So over 90% of the police force in East Cleveland is in fucking trouble. Is in trouble. And this prosecutor had the audacity to stand up and say, he talked about how the police officers were the main danger on the streets of East Cleveland. And I wanted him to say that twice, okay? Because while this whole clamor around rising violent crime, and we don't have enough officers on the street, and we need to increase not only police funding but police training so police can be good agents out there dealing with the public. The concept of even starting something different, it I won't say it doesn't occur to them, but it's not being picked out of the suggestion box, right? Just imagine what the salaries are of 11 police officers, 16 police officers, even in a place like East Cleveland, Ohio, which I imagine is probably very small and black, even though most of those cops, not all, but most of them look pretty white. They look pretty white. Funny how that works. But one of the other things that the prosecutor said in the press conference, he said, it's going to be hard to attract good quality professional police candidates to East Cleveland not because of the reputation that the department has, no, because of the low pay that the department offered. And again, you bundle up those 16 officers' annual salaries, their overtime, their training, their benefits, you're probably talking something close in the millions, okay? Or very, very close to. What would happen if instead of rehiring 11 to 16 new police officers to train them up in the same ways of the dickheads that just got indicted, basically training them in the same ways. How about we repurpose that money into a different form of public safety, right? Not police as we know it. And and again, that was the one thing that kind of went unsaid or didn't get said strongly enough at the presser that I saw. It wasn't quote unquote criminals making the streets of East Cleveland more dangerous for regular, quote unquote, regular working people trying to go to the store or do whatever. It was the actual cops. The cops were the criminals. The cops were the ones making the streets in East Cleveland less safe. But those are the ones who were the benefits of taxpayer dollars and likely a police officer's bill of rights, and all kinds of shit. So there's that coming out of East Cleveland with those 11 police officers indicted. But it really put me, when I saw that story, and I appreciate your soul, brother, 215, for tagging me on that, because when I saw that story, the first thing that really popped into my head was last week, Attorney General Merrick Garland made the announcement pertaining to the Louisville Police Department and all the systemic issues around racism and aggressive policing, especially pertaining to no knock warrants, like the one that was the pretext for Breonna Taylor to be shot and killed in her home. I mean, I just stood there, sat there listening to Merrick Garland, and as I've watched officials from the Department of Justice stand up there time and time again for a very long time now, and this year it's Louisville. You know, last year and years past, it's been Baltimore, it's been the Miami police, it's been the NYPD, it's been the Los Angeles Police Department, it's been the Chicago police, it's been the St. Louis Police Department. Like, I mean, if you started to throw darts at every spot on the map in the continental United States where the police have been under federal investigation for intentionally violating people's civil and constitutional rights, the whole map will be filled with darts. The whole map. And it's time for the media. Well, fuck the media. We don't have expectations of the media, but let me be the media in this case. Like, I am not here to play in your face. I'm not here to say that, you know, we need to work with police. We need to listen to what the police have to say about how we can make the community safer. No, the community will be safer when the police get the fuck out. That's it. That's the tweet. Send that bitch. Post it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you want to give money, public money, give it to the schools, give it to mental health crises counselors. The police have already shown that they are undeserving of the public trust. And I don't even like to say and use the framing, and I frown greatly upon the media framing about reclaim the public trust. Oh, the police have to re-earn the public trust. You have to tell me, when did they ever fucking have it? When did they ever have it? When did they ever have public trust in East Cleveland? When have they ever had public trust in the police in West Baltimore? When have they ever had public trust in the police in Southeast DC? The answer is never. The answer is fucking never. And we will not live in fantasy land with these people. We will not pretend as though this country or the institution of policing used to be something better than what it currently is. Oh, remember when the police what? Remember when the police what? Remember when the police didn't care about whether or not anybody recorded them? Remember when the police could move with such impunity because not everybody had a phone attached to their fucking hand? Yeah, remember them days? Yeah, let's talk about that public trust. The Maryland State Troopers, also another agency that was under federal indictment over a couple of different times, mind you, because Maryland State Police notorious for stopping black drivers up and down I-95, harassing black drivers, searching unreasonably and illegally black drivers and their passengers and their vehicles. Like, come on. We're not playing this fantasy land game. We're not playing Make America Great Again, nigga. we're not playing that bullshit. Because when was America great? Everybody? Never. The answer is never. Never has it been great. Not a single day, not a year, not a decade, not a generation, not a century, not a single one. Not so long as people of color, black people in this country, gay people in this country, trans people in this country still remain under attack by the state, the white supremacist colonialists, all them niggas, the state, the state. So miss me with all that patriotism. And listen, I appreciate even indictments coming. Like, here's the problem though. A lot of people would point to what just happened in East Cleveland with the prosecutors there indicting all those cops and say, hey, that's progress. That's police accountability. That's what you want to happen, right? You want to get rid of the few bad apples. The problem is, who's going to train these new cops? Derek Chauvin was a field training officer. Kim Potter, the cop who didn't know her fucking pistol from her goddamn taser, who shot Dante Wright, also a field training officer. Like, look at who you put in charge to train up the new cops. You train them in the ways of the old Klansmen. So are we as the public supposed to feel any reassurance when they hire new police? I wouldn't. if I lived in East Cleveland, I wouldn't. I would be out there. Well, I would support the people who would be out there, who would be out at the police department saying, no, redistribute them salaries and them benefits and all of that shit. Whatever the standard career duration for an East Cleveland police officer, if they stay on the force 20 years, we need 20 years of that salary, them benefits, that training, that overtime, and we need it to be redistributed in the community to the people that most need it. And I assure you, it's not the fucking cops. And I assure you, if crime, quote unquote crime, if crime is a concern in East Cleveland, well, maybe you need to redistribute these police officers' salaries and benefits to the places where the crime was happening. Well, the crime was the fucking cops being criminals and doing criminal behavior. But take it to the neighborhoods that were the most heavily over policed and redistribute that money right then and there. Watch what happens. Good things is going to happen. Let me let me clean that up. Let me clean that. I'm sorry. So okay, the Reformation is impossible. So what? And if you guys get a chance, please. And I should have wrote the brothers' names down, and I didn't because I'm trifling. But this morning on Black Power Media, Kalanji Changa had on some brothers from Patterson, New Jersey, who were discussing a case of police violence and police murder pertaining to a young person who was experiencing a mental health crisis there. And the man was dropping some gems. I think his name was Bilal. Or is it, what was the other brother's name, y'all? Because I know y'all was there. Everybody, everybody over at BIDWKB is also a BPM All Star as well. Well, but it was an amazing conversation, and the abolition playbook, I guess, was better being articulated to us this morning, and that's what I'm saying. Like, abolition can't it is the really the only solution. Like, all of the conduct that these East Cleveland police officers were indicted for, how were prosecutors even able to get it? Well, because they had body cams, right? But the body cams clearly did not prevent the police from being a destructive and harmful force in the community. It just was able to document it. And if you don't have a prosecutor or even other police officers or the FBI, whatever, if you don't have willing parties that actually want to prosecute criminal police, then the police are just going to keep being criminals on tape. They're going to keep doing the same shit they've always been doing on tape. And it's always so hilarious to me to see the kind of body cam footage that police will tell on themselves, but clearly they are comfortable doing so, leaving their body cams rolling while they themselves are doing illegal activities and talking all kinds of crazy shit, because overall there is no consequence for it. There is no penalty for it. If there was a percentage could be put on the amount of police officers who were actually charged criminally with anything versus the amount of police who were doing criminal behavior, I'm sure it would be an infinitesimal percentage, right? It would be so small. And for the East Cleveland situation, I think they said there was 11 or 12 victims, documented victims, and they started doing this following these particular officers trying to build a case against them from 2020 to 2022. And I'm like, but what about all the people that they was fucking up before 2020? Does that not even count? Oh, and by the way, gang, real quick, the Cleveland area FBI wants to hear from you. They gave out a phone number during their press conference and said, if you have had contact with any of these officers, or you have been harassed or assaulted or violated in any way by any member of the East Cleveland Police Department, call the FBI at 216 da 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 da. And I thought about it for a second. I said, should I write this number down and give this out to my audience? And I said, no, I am not going to write the number down, and I'm not going to give it out to my audience, because I am not going to invite my fire fam to be surveilled by the FBI. Yeah, you think the FBI is, even though they have allegedly assisted in this investigation, I'm sorry, the cops do not like when other cops get told on, period, point blank. They don't like that. They don't like it. And I think anybody who would call up that FBI hotline number would be setting themselves up for some sort of surveillance eventually. So no, don't call. Do not call the FBI, or call at your own risk, or call from somebody's phone. Call from your work phone. Oh, no, don't call from your work phone. I don't know how you could even get your hands on a phone of somebody that you did not like, but I'm trying to think of, whose number you could call from. But anyway, you'd probably have to give out way too much personal information to the FBI. Don't call them niggas anyway, period, point blank. Okay, they got a lot of them cops. We'll start from there. But the pressure needs to be put on Cuyahoga County and the community of East Cleveland, because what was also mentioned at that press conference is basically the concern from the prosecutors, not necessarily the concern from the community. The concern from the prosecutors about the lack of cops on the street, and I guess they're going to have to bring in the Ohio State Troopers and somebody they named another agency. I said that doesn't sound like what the community of East Cleveland needs at all. Like, they just got rid of a criminal gang. Like, they just got rid of their biggest criminal element, which is, of course, was the police. What makes you think that the Ohio State Troopers are any different in behavior or conduct themselves any differently than the East Cleveland police do? Huh? They don't need no more goddamn police. Watch the crime rates drop now that 90% of the East Cleveland Police Department has been indicted. Anyway,